how are you? Welcome to the first issue of Look Kids Comicazi, the Videodrome.
It's got to be a publicity stunt.
I'm Comicazi Mike, that's Miracle Max.
Perfect.
We are going to be talking about brand new comics that you should be checking out if you're not already reading them, and how they tie into older favorites of ours and hopefully yours that you might not know about.
So coming up in today's issue, we're going to talk about Uncanny Avengers and some new books coming out from Marvel now. Ed Brubaker's Noir series that he's been doing in all sorts of different publishers, stuff like Fatale and Incognito. The Valiant line of comics, and one of my personal favorite books these days, Archer and Armstrong. And then, since it's our first issue, we're going to talk about the first superhero and check in and see what he's doing with Batman, Superman, and Action Comics written by Greg Pak. So, Uncanny Avengers, pretty much been my favorite Marvel Now book for a while.
Man, it is the flagship Avengers book, in
Yeah.
my opinion. I know Jonathan Hickman's is supposed to be the big Avengers book, but this is my favorite.
As much as Jonathan Hickman's, I think, was supposed to be the big book, I think even this one was like the first Marvel Now book, you know?
It did kick off Marvel Now.
Yeah, so I think it's really cool. And for those of you who haven't read it, spinning out of Avengers vs. X-Men, as opposed to the teams staying very distant from one another for a while, they've decided to put them together in a book, and they've got this awesome team that's half Avengers, half X-Men, fighting, you know, kind of, their threats have blurred the line between whose threats they are. The threats are so big that these two teams have had to team up like nothing else they've ever had.
It makes Chris Claremont spin in his grave. Mutants and humans working together.
It's crazy. It is crazy.
If this is too much action for you, take it up with this guy.
This is the team I wanted to see in a comic when I was like 14 years old.
Yeah, so the team currently is Captain America,
Thor,
Scarlet Witch over on the Avengers side, and also they've thrown in recently Wonder Man and the Wasp have shown up, which are two very underutilized characters.
and you've got Havoc and Sunfire, two of my favorite X-characters.
And Rogue, who made her first appearance in an Avengers annual. People often forget that.
One of my absolute favorite comics ever.
Yeah, it's a good one. And who else on the X-Men? Isn't there one more on the... Oh, Wolverine.
Yeah, Wolverine. He's everywhere.
But he's good in this book because a lot of this stuff is like a carryover from the last stuff that Rick Remender did.
The Uncanny X-Force.
Uncanny
yeah.
X-Force. Really good stuff. If you haven't read that, check it out. If you did read it, you really need to check out Uncanny Avengers because those plot threads are like really, really important and stuff that they teased in Uncanny X-Force. You know, for those who don't know, Uncanny X-Force was Wolverine's hit squad that would take out mutant threats before they occurred. And they were always teasing, you know, what would happen if Captain America found out that one of his fellow Avengers was leading a team of murderers, essentially. And you see some fallout from that, and it's really, really good.
Yeah, if you are into continuity that's not too, like, crazy fanboyish, like going back 30 years, this is a great book. It's unto itself. It doesn't tie into all the crossover madness that goes on with Infinity or whatever else is going, Battle of the Atom, none of that. It is unto itself, but it is an epic in its own making, and highly recommended on my part.
Yeah, the big events aren't teased, they just happened.
Organically.
Yes, as a story, so it's good stuff.
And the villains that run through this book, it kicks off with the Red Skull. He gets the brain of Xavier.
Yeah, not only that, it's Red Skull, like, in his purest form. It's this... They didn't know that this clone of Red Skull existed. He was, like, literally a bullet through time sent by Hitler to mess up the future. Like, a crazy, like, original Nazi Red Skull, like... He shows up and he's got this big green jumpsuit with a giant swastika on his chest. And it's like, whoa, this guy's scary. This isn't like kind of cool Cap movie, like, I don't want to work for the Nazis. I'm a much more dignified villain. No, this is crazy, scary. Like, I will do some scary stuff to you, Nazi.
Scary in that he has a telepathic brain. He has Charles Xavier's brain.
He is the...
What can he do with his agenda with that ability?
You're literally this walking propaganda machine. You just automatically have people's minds, and using that with like a Nazi ideology, it's scary. It's a little bit scary. It's really good. But all the other villains showing up, again, can do some really cool stuff. Like in one issue, you see an old Thor back when he was kind of a Viking pillager god, he winds up running into Apocalypse, who has just come to Earth as like a crazy, scary Egyptian mutant.
Apocalypse,
thing.
not one of my favorite villains back in the day, but Remender's doing him up right.
Yeah, because I think he's really reminding everyone his like celestial connection. Because that was the big thing. He was the first mutant, so he was then given gifts by the Celestials, who are the Marvel equivalent of gods, that amplified his powers, and he's flying around in this big pyramid spaceship, and he's totally cool and weird. He's the X-Men's dark side, and he's very much being played up like that this time.
And one of my favorite villains ever, Kang.
Oh my god, Kang's so cool. He's totally this time-traveling, despotic, the old school Kang. He's very much the old school Kang showing up. And that's one of the cool things about Kang, is that you're never really sure where he's coming from. So in Uncanny Avengers, you have, our classic version of Kang, and then the one showing up in FF is like very much young Kang, and he's with what's his girlfriend's name?
Ravonna.
10 points.
Okay, Captain America. He's in the Uncanny Avengers. Ed Brubaker wrote some of the best Captain America stories you will read in the past 20 years. And for like a really reaching segue, Ed Brubaker has got a new book out called Velvet. It is what he has always wanted to do in comics. It is James Bond spy stuff to the max. It's great. Issue 1 is out already. 2 is forthcoming, but you want to check out some of his other stuff. He also has Fatale, which is kind of a Lovecraftian crime thriller.
He's sort of been jumping around genres, but in the same time staying in the genre of just noir. Him and Sean
He stays
Phillips.
true. That's his thing. He started out years ago in the 90s working as just a crime writer for like Caliber Press, and I think he was a contemporary of Bendis back in the day too. They were just doing their thing, and he's always stayed true to that. Got his start with the big 2 over at DC. He was doing Detective Comics. His Catwoman with Darwin Cook was still a fan favorite. Then he jumped over to Marvel for the Captain America run for 8 years.
Yeah, and they're basing the next movie off of his first run, The Winter Soldier, which is pretty crazy if you think about how long Captain America's been around, and of all the stories they could pick, this one, is going to resonate the most with the fans, and it did.
It strikes to the heart of like Captain America. I can't wait for that movie, and definitely read Winter Soldier. Next time you come in the store, ask any of us to pick up a copy.
The one I picked up was, of course, the superhero one that he did. He did a really good one, Incognito, which was really cool, and it was about an out-of-work supervillain who's kind of in like a witness protection program, and he's just delivering mail in an office, and he just hates his job, and he's got terrible friends, and he decides to make one more go at it as a supervillain.
I have not read that. I read Criminal, which was brilliant.
Yeah, Criminal is cool.
Total Philip Marlowe, 50s private dick noir genius. And he's always with Sean Phillips, too.
Yeah, Sean Phillips, really good artist. Like, a lot of his characters kind of have this sort of dumpy feel to them, but they just, when they have their outbursts or when things devolve into violence,
they're people.
It's got a real grit to it. It's really good. Definitely
They're the Stan and Jack of the crime comic, the current crime comic.
I'm inclined to agree with that large statement.
Believe it or not, you asked for today's story.
One of my jobs here at Comicazi is that I'm in charge of the back issue bins, and I make sure that those stay organized. And one of our big sections of a lot of weird books come from the Valiant line of comics from the 90s, and there's all sorts of crazy concepts in there. They were definitely trying to build this whole sort of superhero universe, and recently they did a reboot of all their big famous properties, and the one that struck a chord with me was Archer and Armstrong by one of my favorite writers, Fred Van Lente. He mixes in sort of his knowledge of modern politics and history to tell this awesome action story.
A nice twist on the original Valiant run, which was also brilliant. Shadow Man is good, too.
It seems like either they've taken their time on it, or they've decided just to go really all out and just reboot their characters and their concepts. With some really interesting creators.
Definitely give one of the Valiant titles a try.
Including our local favorite artist, Ming Doyle, customer
Yes.
of the shop. She's drawing Quantum and Woody. It's super fun too.
Hey,
Check it out.
Ming.
Superman! I thought you could use these steel girders.
You bet I can. Thanks, Jimmy.
This issue of Action Comics, which Greg Pak's first issue, was really cool. It's a flashback to Superman in his jeans and T-shirt.
Yeah, it's tying into the whole 0 year that Scott Snyder's doing in Batman.
There's a big blackout, and Superman decides that, hey, in the middle of this big blackout, I'm going to try and jump into the middle of a hurricane just because I can.
Because I'm Superman.
Yeah,
Why
so that's
not?
really cool. That's something that I would do if I were Superman. I'd definitely be charging headlong into some natural
Really,
disasters.
I'd kind of take over the world like Mark Wade's Irredeemable myself if
That'd
I
be
were
good.
Superman. But,
Well, I'd have to stop you,
worship
but
me.
I mean, no worries.
I must contact Batman at once.
Batman Superman is obviously sort of a world's finest team-up book that again sort of spans the history of these characters as we know them so far. So the first story arc is a young Batman and a young Superman teaming up for the first time, as well as those two having to team up with future versions of themselves, and they're kind of really nitpicky about what young Batman and young Superman are up to. But it's really good. It's got art by Jay Lee, and Wonder Woman shows up too. So
That's 90s-tastic. Year 3 of the New 52.
Wow.
There's some changes
Are you
coming.
serious?
Yeah.
Year 3. Wow. That's kind of nuts.
Jeff Parker Aquaman, baby.
Ah, it's going to be so good. Does he have a beard? I think he
One
does
can
have a
only
beard.
hope.
I think he does have a beard in the new Aquaman. That would be really
Maybe
good.
we could have him as a guest star.
So join us next time. We're going to have some cool comics news for you here at Little Kids Comicazi Video Drone.
What are you guys doing? We gotta open the store.
Nice scruff, Summers.
Get out of here.